Welcome to Bourbon Over Baseball. Today I am drinking a bourbon called Tin Cup that I picked up at the local Giant Eagle. It's not bad. It's a little refreshing. And today we're going to be talking to Matt Holloway, who is the owner of the Mighty Musky Minotaurs.
Well,
hello. So tell me about the Mighty Musky Minotaurs. Where did you come with that name?
The first thing,
triple M's.
Yeah, well, I think alliteration is an important thing for me. So 3 M's there is important. I think Mighty Musky Minotaurs have it. M cubed. You have a theme going, and I really like Minotaurs. And Mighty.
Sense.
Mighty is a pro. It's very strong. Musky, well, it's intimidation factor. Hopefully, people are a little nervous.
Well, they did that in Game 1. They were definitely intimidated.
Yeah, that was unfortunately not the case.
Or week
how
1,
I went
I should
here
say.
For week 2.
Yes.
Week 2 is much.
So the triple M's, you're in the National League. You have
that's right.
Some of the other people. We have James, the Butch Huskies. We have the Hardcore Gamers, and we have the Invader Zimmers in that league.
Mm-hmm.
So you're trying out. You're 2-2 right now. So you're okay. You crushed week 2.
Week 1.
Week 1.
Week 1 was really good for me.
Week 2, a little struggled on the back end of his bullpen. But speaking of that, let's break down to that team now. So I actually do like your team now. Seeing it on paper at first, I was a little confused, but now that I've seen it play 2 weeks in a row, I'm very impressed by the way it flows and the overall size of the team and the on-base percentage. But let's talk. So your first pick was?
Nolan Ryan.
Mr. Nolan Ryan from 1981.
Yeah, so I was at 700 points even. I was second pick overall. And I think... I forget who it was that Rory was.
Rory,
and he chose the big Barry Bonds.
He picked the Barry Bonds,
big Papa.
The big one.
I've got the junior Barry Bonds.
The 11 on base Barry Bonds.
But my thinking was and I know that you had gone with
Bob Gibson.
Bob Gibson later on, which perhaps in retrospect maybe that was a better idea. I don't know, but I wanted to pick a really good pitcher first, so that the idea being he's hopefully going to dominate whatever game he's in.
Yes.
So game 1 of 4, so 25% of the games, hopefully.
Yes.
Is just a chalk up win to my pitching.
And it did. He did win. And he pitched a great game.
He was that. Yeah, that first game he pitched was great. And my next game that I play for week 3 will be. Starting.
Yes, you're right. Which will be great as well.
Rotation.
So yes, we're taking a 5,500 point salary league. A 700 point starter, just over one or just under 150. You're it's like a 160 your salary cap was a big dice roll. Obviously, I took Bob Gibson, the same concept. I think having a starter that can just win a game for you is so impressive. So yeah, I agree with your Nolan Ryan. That was great. Now overall, though, how do you feel about your team? What was your strategy going into the draft?
So I like the idea of building a very defensive infield that also can. So 2 things from the defensive perspective, defensive infield. So hopefully to get higher numbers there, so that I can focus on getting pitchers that would maximize ground balls, so that hopefully the double play is a more common thing.
Yes, and your infield is an 11.
It's not the best.
No,
there's definitely good numbers.
No, you went there. Higher. You went at a higher range. So an A-Rod here, who is not the highest you can get as a shortstop +5, but you went shortstop +4. But you also went for power in that guy. So you went for guys that had great defense, but weren't going to let you down in the power department as well, or the hitting department.
Right, because I think to that point, the offensive perspective that I'm going for is that I've got the first 5 in my lineup are 10s, and then 2 9s, and then a 7 and a 6. So as far as hitting goes,
that's where your salary comes into play, though.
Right, and that is the downside, because if I've got Nolan Ryan, I've got A-Rod, I've got Barry Bonds, I've got some expensive players.
But hey, in that game 4, Gregory Polanco was one of your best players.
Yeah, it's
all dice roll.
Yeah, a lot of it comes down to that, because the first week, with both Barry Bonds and A-Rod, seeing A-Rod get, I think, 5 home runs in 2 games versus Barry Bonds getting 6 strikeouts, I think, in a double.
Yeah, and two doubles.
But statistically speaking, Barry Bonds should be a little bit better than A-Rod.
Yeah, and this is the Barry Bonds from the 01 season, the foil one from that most people are familiar with. Now, he does have a couple of the custom cards on here with Paul Molitor. He has the Nolan Ryan, which is custom, but most of the cards you should be familiar with, if not the 2014 versions. Russell Martin, Justin Morneau, Bobby Abreu, and Gregory Polanco are the 2014 version that people might not be familiar with. But again, if you look at his team, you should be able to see that. But yeah, your lineup it starts off the game with 5 10 on bases in a row, and then slowly goes down to 2 9s, a 7, and a 6. Very solid. Your infield's an 11, your outfield's a 5, your catcher's an 8. I feel like defensively you're there. You have a great, Barry Bonds, A-Rod are just monsters. Obviously, it's happened for you with A-Rod hitting those home runs. But overall, just having those 5 guys, I just saw you play the Funko Fanatics, and he had a tough time getting through those 10s without giving up the advantage to at least one or two guys, which was great. So, but one of his most frustrating things was your pitching staff. So let's go over that.
Yeah, so the focus with a lot of my pitchers was to go very high control, and focus on guys who had a larger, as big as a ground ball range that I could find. Because I figure, and I think that's the big gamble that I took with this team is that having a high control number. And then having a variety of stats for the actual play out here. I don't know, so that my thing was that, hey, I want the majority of pitches that I happen to follow, I want the outcome to be dictated from my sheet.
On your chart.
And so I don't know if that's the best idea yet, or I don't know if that's the right call yet, because I think that an interesting thing to explore would be someone who is like a Nolan Ryan. Well, Nolan Ryan's an exception because he's got a really high control, and if you get a 16 or less, you're out, and then anything else is just a single.
Yes,
so he's an exception. But if you take a normal guy who's got a high control, and then either they, the first thing is either they give up a homer or they don't. But you've got a variety of things here. Even though a lot of the pitches are going to end up being hit from here. The fact you're still getting up singles and doubles at reasonable 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, a quarter of the time, slightly less than a quarter of the time, it still seems like that gains enough traction.
Yeah.
But I wonder what, that kind of approach, high control and then hopefully deal with things versus a lower control but a more reasonably distributed or favorably for you as the pitcher stat outcome.
Yeah.
So imagine someone who has a 1 or 2 control but then has much better...
Which is what we saw with the Butch Huskies team. He has a couple pitchers with 1 or 2 control, and 1 through 18, 1 through 17 is outs. And when he got the advantage, he was total dominant. But when he didn't, it was an onslaught because he didn't get the advantage.
Right, because imagine what's the best batter? Usually a 10
or 11.
10 or 11.
Yeah.
So if you've got a pitcher that says it's a 1. And it's a flip coin slightly. Well, I guess if it's a 10, it's now tied. So it's
flip coin slightly to you.
Right. So, if you've got someone with a control 1, it's like, okay, every other pitch that's going to happen is going to be on mine.
Yep.
Whereas, control, it's probably, I don't know, with a +5, that gives you, on average, if the guy is a 10, 15 or higher.
Yeah. 25% of the time, you're giving with advantage.
Right. And then, so mostly on yours. In the case of Nolan Ryan, again, an exception, it's double. But here, even though the 25% of the time, it's on theirs, so who knows what's going to happen. But instead of half and half with someone with a low control, me having a high, I've got 3/4 of the time it's going to be on my right here. But even with, looking here at Rob Bell, having something where it's, homers, and homers still exist, and then there's also a double, and then still places for singles. So 15 or higher there's on base. So I don't know if that's the best.
So the only thing that I don't like about the sixes that you have, because his whole starting line, his whole pitching rotation of the 4 pitchers are Nolan Ryan, Julio Tavares, Octavio Dotel, and Rob Bell. All of them are 6s. 3 of them, 1 through 14 out, and 2 of them give up a home run on 20. So I don't mind having a pitcher that gives up a home run on 20. I have one as well. I think that's where you can get a lot of value in, especially for a 6 starter. What I do the problem with is the 1 through 14 out. I feel like that is a struggle with a lot of these pitchers. It did happen a couple times in the game we just got done watching, which was against the Funko Fanatics, where a lot of 15s were rolled and they end up being walks when they could be outs. But Octavio Dotel had a couple home runs where he had 20, and Rob Bell, who also had the same thing, had no home runs given up as a 20. So that is such a fluctuation. But I try to get as many outs as I can in that the largest range. But even so, as you're watching the Funko Fanatics game, he was getting very frustrated with every pitcher coming in was a 6. I mean, it's very tiresome to almost always have the advantage on the pitcher's chart, which is a huge advantage, I think, in terms of strategy, which I think was great for you. So I love that. I actually think your team overall is very great and very strong. I think you got a little unlucky against Robert. He did. Against Funko Fanatics, he did gun a guy out with a 20 roll.
Oh yeah, that was good. Yeah, it was the 1 or 20. Otherwise, 1 through 19, my guy scores, and I've got guy on third and 2 outs. Or it's the end of the inning, and he gets the 20. That was rough.
That's the roughest part of that. I mean, other than that, I just don't like the 1 through 14 out, but I like all his relievers are strong. I think his closer, again, with the 1 through 20, or the 20 home run is not a big deal, but the 1 through 14 out, that's where I really start to struggle with. But that was the strategy going in, if I'm not mistaken. It was, I'm going to get high control.
High control, hopefully, especially in the starter.
You're still 75%, or just under 75% is on your chart.
Right, and a lot of these guys do have a pretty decent chart. And the idea is that, not in the starters necessarily, but a lot of the relief, the idea is hopefully, expanding that ground ball to really take advantage of having a moderately defensed infield here.
So I explained what I thought was the weak point, but what do you think is the weak point of your team?
No,
I mean, is the 1 through 14 out, or is maybe the back of your lineup? I mean,
well, the back of the line. Well,
most people's back lineup is going to be struggling. But you only have 2 batters that are really the back of your lineup, where most people have 3.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, like, Mueller here is still decent at hitting, but like not having any homers and no triples in the bottom 3 is tricky, because the best I can do in any case is double or with the 20s, my final 3. But I don't know how much that matters, is knowing that the first half here is weighted so much.
Yeah,
I think that having pitching that not just specifically giving up the home runs, but I think the range of outs is right, because like, when I have the last 2 starters here against the Funko Fanatics with Dotel and Bell, they have both of 6 for control, and yes, they give up homers, but I don't think that was the biggest thing that was a concern. The thing that was problematic was anything from a 15 or higher was on base.
25% of the rolls.
Yes, 3/4 of the pitches were decided by mine, which means that of those 3/4, 3/4 of the time that was an out, the other time was on base or worse, something. And then the other half from the original set, or 1/4 of the other times it's his, which is then usually very beneficial to him.
Absolutely.
So I think having that slower range is really detrimental. That's why I'm interested in seeing control very small.
Yes.
And then having a better range here, because I think that may end up, like, sure, it's going to be on theirs half the time or a good amount, but when it's on mine, there's none of this. I win the advantage,
correct.
And then they get
they
still get on base.
Where's that fine line? That's what you're trying to play. Again, this is the M cubed, or the Mighty Musky Minotaurs' first time ever playing MLB Showdown. He's played Clutch before once, but this is his first time playing Showdown in obviously a very large draft pool. I mean, we had plenty of years to pick from, so it was a little big. It was a big giant Rochester draft that we were playing. And so this, I think overall, though, very good strategy going into this. And I think even though you're 2-2 right now, I think you'll do very well in your division. I think you have a very strong team. I mean, Raleigh Fingers, who's in your division, I think is a really, really strong team. I don't think the Butch Huskies have the strongest team because of the pitching, but we will see, because he is the opposite of your pitching strategy. And he went total, I think he has almost all 10s and 11s, if not there's 1 9. I mean, his lineup is ridiculous, but he sacrificed everything on the starting pitching rotation. So where is that fine line? So I think we'll see pretty soon how well the 2-2 record is right now. Knowing that, though, are there anything that you see with the league itself that you see improvements or what you like?
Yeah, I mean, I think this format works well. It's nice being able to play online or come here and play, but I think that maybe exploring 3 games, best of 3. I don't know how much that would add or take away.
Most games are 30 minutes to 45 minutes. They're faster with me keeping the score, that's for sure.
That is for sure, yeah, because that is a concern. Because if you get too much of a time commitment that is consistent, it's hard to get everyone, to work with that. So, I mean, that's at least the idea I think of initially, because, playing Magic and other various tournaments for a long part, of history, where it's best of 3 usually, that kind of mentality. Not that it's problematic here, because the actual outcome of the best of 3 doesn't matter.
Correct.
It's just the fact that you have 2 games. So, like, of the 4 games I've played in 2 different players, 1-2 lost to, so 2-2.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really change the impact much, or change the outcome much, but it's just like thinking of it in that way.
Yeah, that was my idea going into it, was creating the league, was that 1 team would be home, 1 team would be away, switch opponents. There's 10 guys in our league, and you got to face the 9 other people. So, you got to face everyone. You're going to play 18 games with a home and away of each one, and hypothetically, it should even out however you're supposed to be. Again, you're 2-2 now, so obviously hope that you win the next, 14 in a row.
I think it's going to end up being that the odd number rounds, so 1 and 3, and as opposed to these, because we're going to get Nolan Ryan and Tavares again, and I think that the next round that I play, which will be week 3, where I'll be back at my rotation, Nolan Ryan, I think that game is going to be dominated, and I think there's a good chance that that would
have been the most interesting thing, I think, with 3 games, is that when you have this, then you would have your 1, 2, and 3 starters, and then the next guy you played would be this guy, this guy, this guy, be 4th, 1, 2. Now you're like, whoa, I didn't know I was going to face Nolan Ryan this series, and if you're the lucky guy that didn't get to face Nolan Ryan, you're like super happy that you got to face 2, 3, 4, but most of the time Nolan Ryan's pitching, so that would be interesting. Maybe cutting the league down, let's say two or 3 weeks, but increasing it by one more game per series could have been interesting.
Because I think for me, what's going to happen is we're going to see a sinusoidal like wave of winning losing, like games or 1 and 2 win, 3 and 4 maybe not necessarily that, but I think it's going to follow that very
well in terms of. It should be interesting because hypothetically you're facing the other guy's 3 and 4 pitchers as well, who are hypothetically this weakest part of his pitching rotation too, unless he stacked them up unbelievably.
Right.
So that's what's going to be really interesting to see is when you have both number one aces going at each other in week 1, game 1, which I did as win against the Millennial Falcons week 1, game 1. We went 13 innings of no run ball. That happens. But then when you get to your 3-4 starters, that doesn't happen.
Right.
But with the bye weeks built into this thing, and they're not getting rest. Somebody's every once in a while a 3 and 4 pitcher are going to face off against a 1 or 2 pitcher. Is going to really make things really wacky.
That's going to be interesting to see because I think that that choosing to have it be that the bye week doesn't rest your players. I think that may we'll see because I'm thinking that could be a place for contention where my 3rd and 4th string pitchers are playing against your 1 and 2. Of course you dominated.
Correct.
But then the next week in theory again, you're playing someone because you're off. You're on schedule B now.
Yep.
You're going to be playing your aces against their bad guys. So it'll be interesting to see.
It should hypothetically even out, but we will see. But again, with the luck of the dice roll, you never know. And ace studs I've seen get blown up, and I've seen people with one control and 0 control get shutouts. So. I think that's a great analysis of your team, and my bourbon is done, so I think our time is up.
All right.
Thank you again, Mighty Musky Minotaurs, for our time together.
Thank you.